Welcome to Speak Free with Mattyg, the podcast that celebrates free speech, truth, and open discussion. Hi, and welcome to Speak Free with Mattyg, episode 12. I'm joined here today by a friend of mine, Sarah Richards. How are you?
Really good. How are you, Matt?
I'm good. So obviously, I'm really keen to do this episode. It's probably I think in my opinion, the most important episode I've done. So we're going to cover, if you don't know, Sarah is a local councillor for the Hawkesbury Council. And you've ran an election, the last federal election, against Susan Templeman of Labor, who is our current federal member. And you're going to run again next year. So
just announced yesterday officially, or this weekend officially.
Yeah, exciting. It feels like it's flown by those 3 years.
It has, because you contacted me 3 or so years ago when we sat down and did a bit of a chat at South Windsor.
Yeah, while I was still at uni.
That's
so
right.
Yeah,
That's how far you've come.
I know. Well, getting there.
It's good.
Thank you for joining me. So the local election, let's cover that.
Sure.
We've got 4 seats, pretty much. Well, they're confirmed for Liberal.
Yes, it's not declared yet, but it's looking that way that 4 are fine.
Yeah, and then possibly 5.
Possibly 5. I'm no mathematician. Pat Connolly is our accountant on the team. He does the numbers, although he's saying that it looks like 10 places are quite certain, and there's 2 spots left, but 3 candidates vying for them who have similar numbers for those spots.
Yeah. So huge win for the Liberal Party, basically, in this area.
It's been a big swing towards us, which has been lovely. And given that this campaign led up with some rubbish from some local people, and I'm quite frank about that, it's absolutely... we are very pleased that the community had a positive response to our message, to what we intend to do for the Hawkesbury, and voted at the ballot box.
Yeah.
Great.
And do you think that swing will follow through into next year?
Well, if it does, then we have a great result for Macquarie.
Yeah.
Because the seat is only at 0.2%. So I think the margin last time was 371 votes. And the way I look at it is, if you halve that and add 1 to win by 1, it's 186, 187. So really small margin, which is why it's the most marginal seat in the whole country. Yeah,
and it wasn't always like that.
No.
So there was it was quite a Liberal seat for a while, and then obviously there was it all changed, didn't it, when we went with the Blue Mountains as well. Is that right?
Traditionally, Macquarie has been with the Blue Mountains. There were seat changes in the last few years when there was Greenway part of it, and then part of the Blue Mountains went out west a little bit as well. But the traditional boundaries are Hawkesbury Blue Mountains, and it was Liberal held for a lot of that time as well. It has been Labor as well in the past.
Yeah.
But Liberal predominantly for the time being lately, maybe the last decade or 2. But no, we've got a Labor MP, but we have a good message to sell. The National Morrison government has a great message to sell, and I think that continuity for the Australian people will be important.
Yeah, I suppose especially at a time like this, a change in government is really not what you need.
No, it's not.
When there's, obviously with COVID and everything, no matter your view on COVID, I've been pretty vocal about my view, but at the end of the day, it's about the economy, really, and getting back on track, coming out of it. I think everyone can be on the same standpoint as that, is that we want a strong economy.
It's good to hear a young person say that, Matt, because it is the focus of the federal government to ensure that after 2 years of a pandemic, which most of us have never lived through a pandemic before, and how that plays out, not just with our health, but with the economy and with jobs. And that will be the focus, making sure that we have an economic recovery where we're all still in work, we can all pay our bills, that society is functioning, and that's going to be the focus. Yeah,
and I must say that's probably the most refreshing thing I've heard from Perrottet coming in as state, is that's his huge focus. Before that, and nothing against Gladys, but I just feel like that wasn't such a huge focus before. And I know we were in lockdown and it was coming out of it. He probably came in at a good time. But it has been refreshing that, that's the whole focus, even when the whole new variant and all that stuff, to still be saying, no, we're going to open up as planned and we're going to get back on track. And
it is good to hear that. And as someone who has been steadfast with small business and stood by small business and promoted them as much as I can, to hear that message is great, because there were so many businesses during, especially the last lockdown this year, not the first one last year, but this year, that really hurt and really suffered. Close friends and family of mine lost businesses, not just the wider community. So I, really knew what it was like for people to be losing their businesses. And it's great that the message from the government or state government is that they just want to stay open as much as they can.
Yeah, and it's so different to some other states out there. I mean, let's talk about Victoria for a second. Yeah. It would be so hard to be a business owner down there because there is no certainty given from their government whatsoever. If anything, it's almost certainty the other way, that they want to be put back in lockdown. I mean, with the new laws that have passed with the Andrews government. So I think, through that, even if you're not a huge Paratay fan or a Liberal Party fan, I think you could be thanking your lucky stars that you live in New South Wales and not in Victoria or elsewhere.
Well, I think the whole last 2 years we've been lucky to live in New South Wales.
Yeah.
Frankly, it's been... even with Gladys, it was the state that was open the most in terms of, had the message that they wanted to do that. And, Victoria and then, of course, Queensland closing their border at the drop of a hat, they're entitled, they're their own government, they can make their own decisions. But it really did affect a lot of families and a lot of workers, and it had a huge impact on people's mental health as well. Yeah,
for sure. And I suppose in terms of local... To swing it back to you, and coming out of this, pandemic and the focus on economy, what are you keen to see happen in the Hawkesbury in terms of that?
Yeah, are we talking local council or we're talking federal candidacy? We've got two hats on.
Well, we do, but we can. I suppose we can cover a bit of both. We'll talk about council first because that's a sure bet. You're going to be a councillor. We know that. So we'll talk about that.
Yeah, what I want for the Hawkesbury is I want to make sure that we have a vibrant Hawkesbury, something that, as 3 young kids, I have myself as a mum of 3 young kids, I want to make sure that we are giving opportunities to future generations. And I've sat through a council the last 5 years where a lot of things that have come before us have been voted down as no. I'm sick of saying no. Opportunity is my big key word, and that means we are building things so we can have local jobs available. We're inviting industry to come and be in the Hawkesbury. If you look at the census data, a lot of our residents have to leave the Hawkesbury for work. I want people to know there's jobs here. So I want to grow the Hawkesbury in terms of opportunities, as I've said just before. When you get down to council's core business, and that's something I want to focus on, not this broader umbrella of issues that waste hours and hours and hours of time debating in council for nothing more than virtue signalling. I really want to get back to what we do, and that's making sure our roads are in a proper state. And let's be honest, we've got a lot of work to do to bring our roads up to standard. It's a classic roads rates rubbish. We will have a look at the rating structure. As Liberals, we fought against the rating structure over the last 5 years, so we're going to take a look at that and how we can make it fairer to everyone in our community. Rubbish is the next one, and we've got our tip locally. We've got to make sure that we're getting value for money there as well. But the last one is planning, and it's something that I always tack on when I say roads, rates, rubbish and planning, because so many people in our local area will put a DA in, whether it's even for something as small as a pergola or a backyard pool or a shed, and they're just not finding that process is working for them. So we really need to make sure that we have a council that's focused on customer service and delivering a timely response to DAs.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. And I guess as a person of my age, I'm 24. I think the nightlife and pub scene is something that we really care about here. And there's been a huge improvement. I mean, lockdown happened, and somehow all these pubs just did it up. Oh, so good now. Especially we're talking about it. I actually had Matt Ellings on last week, and he's a local DJ. He's kind of everywhere at the moment. Good friend of mine. And we're talking about, Richmond and how good Richmond is now, like the Ricky Inn and the Royals, like they're almost done. They'll be ready to open in about a week or two, they said to me on Saturday when I was there. And that must be awesome to see. And is that something you want to see more of for the Hawkesbury?
Absolutely. Again, that comes down to the fact that we may not have the best public transport out here, right? So for young people to want to go out and have a nightlife, which is something that they all want to do, I still want to do it. You don't want to have to venture out of your area and then have to have the consideration about driving home and if you want to have a couple of drinks or whatever. So having those options in the Hawkesbury is terrific. And not only is it for the locals, but it encourages others to come and support our small businesses. And we want the Hawkesbury to be known for having really good pubs, clubs, shops, small businesses to come and visit and shop at. We want to be known for that, and we need to start building on that because for the last few years, that has remained stagnant. So we really need to capitalise on it.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking a bit like last week as well, and looking at places like the Fiddler and that, and so many people from the Hawkesbury go there, and that's fine. I've gone there quite a few times myself, and I did say a few things last week that
Okay.
I didn't fully mean. Like, I do like the Fiddler, but in terms of someone from the Hawkesbury, it's so hard to get there and then get back. You know, if you want to drink, you know, you'd have to go there sober. So, you know, or catch a $80 Uber home, which who wants to spend $80 on a ride home when you've spent $150 on alcohol or food or whatever it is. So to have venues like that in the Hawkesbury, yeah, that's something that I would like to see more of. And yeah, so I guess in terms of nightlife and that as well, there's also the music festivals are such a huge thing for kids, for young people. And we saw a taste of it with the flood relief concert, which I was there. I was lucky enough to photograph that event for Blue Mountains Phoenix, so shout out. But that was really good, and it kind of, I've said it for a few years now that there should be more like that in the Hawkesbury. We have the space for it. We have the so many good venues, like Hawkesbury Showgrounds could be a great venue for it, where the flood relief concert was. Is someone came to the council and said, we want to do this, we want to do this here, whether it be Triple J or whoever, who run these festivals, is that something you would support?
Absolutely. And I have been vocal about that in the past when other proposals have been put to council for those kinds of things. And it has frustrated me endlessly when you have a chorus of other people, councillors and community members saying, no, that this is not right for the Hawkesbury. And it's really upsetting because, as you said, we have the space for it. What I have seen over the last 5 years, though, is when small businesses or people with ideas come to council and say, this is what I want to do, we really have had a supportive staff. And I do want to give credit to the staff where it's due. They've developed a range of matrix lists and checklists and things like that that make it easy for us as councillors to make decisions on those things. And the staff have been very supportive of people coming in and wanting to do those kind of ventures and giving council support. We need to give support to those sorts of things. So absolutely, without a doubt.
Yeah, awesome. Now, I guess to go back, not everyone in the Hawkesbury would know who you are. A lot of people do, but not everyone does. Not everyone's so politically invested as I guess someone like me would be, or other people. But give a rundown on your political history and how you sort of got into politics. Take it away.
Yeah, sure. So when I was at university, I was studying a double degree of law and journalism, and I was in the topic of constitutional law one day, and I just really had this, oh wow, I really like this. I always wanted to be a rugby league writer, which is why I was doing journalism, but I got the marks to do law, so I tacked law on as another degree, but really found a passion for it, but not so much being a lawyer, which I was for a few years before I had kids, but the legislation side of things, I really started to like that.
Yeah.
Then I was in one of my public relations classes. One of my teachers ended up working for Jackie Kelly as well at the time, and I ended up going and doing some volunteer work with Jackie Kelly in her office. She was the former member for Lindsay, and started going down to Canberra and doing those sorts of things, and then started hanging out a little bit more with Kerry Bartlett, who was the former three-back member for Macquarie, and he would take me down there, and I just developed such a passion for it and joined the party. When I think it was about 21, I was a candidate for Hawkesbury City Council on the first ever Liberal ticket. That was in 2004, and they elect 12 councillors, and I came 13th. So I just missed out when I was young. Not long after that, I was asked by the party, did I want to have a go and see what it was like to be a federal candidate. I mean, at 21, 22, that's a pretty big deal. And so I said, of course, and was the candidate for Reid, which was at the time around the Auburn area. Did that, got the highest swing in the state. And I've had other MPs say, she tried to do that. And I criticise that heavily because that was a learning opportunity for a young person interested in politics. And if anyone ever tries to diminish the ambition or the drive of any young person wanting to put up their hand in a very difficult sphere, shame on them, because that's really, really appalling. So I did that, and then I got married and had 3 kids. So in quite a short space of time. So my life was, being a mum for a bit. but politics always beckoned and came back into things. Before I did that, I actually joined a lot of local community groups because I believe that if you want to be a politician worth your salt, you need to demonstrate to the community that you have their best interests at heart. So I had joined the local Rotary Club. I was on the board of a local aged care home. I was on the board of the local hospital, which I still am now, the community board. And I was doing all those things to demonstrate to the Hawkesbury and the wider community that I love this place so much. I will give up countless amount of time for it, including when I was the president of Hawkesbury Rotary, and I had a 3-year-old at the meeting, a 1-year-old sitting in a chair on the table, and I was pregnant with the third, still doing this stuff. And I like to use that as an example to people that there should be no limits to what you want to do, as long as you have a community around you who accommodates that, which I always have had with the kids. In 2016, put my hand up again for local council and was honoured to lead the Liberal ticket, got elected, and of course 2019 was very humbled to be the candidate for Macquarie and just missed out by that much. And, you know, people say, you know, you're a councillor and you're doing, you know, the federal candidacy as well. And I say, yes, I'm a councillor. That is my job. I have been elected to that position as well. But what a privilege it would be if the community says to me, okay, you know, we are happy with the job that you've done on the local issues, because every level of government is a different issue. It's a different jurisdiction, different things to handle. So if they said, you know, we love what you've done here, we'd love to see you advocate for those issues on a federal level, it would just absolutely be the most humbling thing.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. And let's talk about 2019 for a bit, sure. Because obviously super close election. I mean, we didn't know for many days, 10 days. Yeah. I met your old man that day actually at North Richmond. Great guy, fantastic guy. We had a good chat. I was standing there with him for about, it would have been close to an hour, having a good chat, and we became friends before that. So I remember texting you being like, I think you got this. And then obviously things didn't work out. But for people who are watching this now, a lot of people watch this probably aren't into politics. Let's just explain how the preferential system works. You could probably explain it the best. Yeah. And I suppose that, because if people just looked at, first preference votes, and
which is what state is, first past the post, I would have probably been victory. I would have seen that in half an hour.
Yeah.
From the polling closing at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
It was very obvious. I got over 6,500 more votes than the current MP.
Yeah.
Huge amount. We're not just talking trivial amounts. It was huge. But federally, we have a compulsory preferential system. So you must mark every box on the ballot paper for the House of Representatives. And so we only had 5 candidates for Macquarie last time, and I got drawn out of the hat to be at the top. So that was that was great, because sometimes people go do a donkey vote.
Exactly.
They go down the page. But, because it's compulsory preferential, it means that if someone voted for one of the other candidates that wasn't Liberal or Labor, and that candidate obviously didn't get in, the preferences flow to basically the 2 major party candidates. Yeah. And it was frustrating because the seat had to be counted twice, obviously, down at a warehouse at Eastern Creek. And a lot of my scrutineers who were there observing the count were seeing a lot of votes that were number 1 for me, but they hadn't filled in the rest of the boxes. So that's immediately an informal vote.
Right, yeah.
And so for anyone watching who really doesn't invest in politics, I say 2 things. First of all, at least go and have your vote and make it valid, because the person who is elected as your representative will either form government or sit in opposition, one or the other. But they're the people who are going to make key decisions on your life and your family's life. And that's why you have to care about your vote. Your vote is a huge responsibility. It forms government, whether it's local, state or federal level. It's forming a government. That government will make decisions on your roads, on the amount of tax you pay, on the education, the money that's invested in education, the money that's invested in healthcare. You have to use your vote, have your vote, and use it wisely. And therefore, fill in all the boxes if that's the rules, because it really does make a difference, especially in a seat like this, as to who your representative will be.
Yeah, and I'm obviously not a fan of the 2 party preferential system that we have. I just think whoever gets the most votes should be the bloody member. I don't know. I think it's it's just crazy to me. But I do get it, you know, both ways. I guess it's the same in sort of the United States with you know, the Electoral College and that. You know, a lot of people think that's rigged, but it actually does make sense. Now, I guess looking forward to next year, now it'll, you know, it's the same deal obviously with the two-party, you know, the preferential system that we have in place. Do you think you have enough now to your own prediction basically for next election?
All I can do is hope. And I hope that since I just lost the seat last time, anyone who does follow things knows I haven't stopped campaigning essentially. And I hope that people see that I actually have ideas to help people outside of the political sphere. So I've come up with things like when the bushfires hit, I did quite a few initiatives. The biggest one was Back to Bilpin, which went crazy when we launched Back to Bilpin. The next one was Mattress for a Mate, where we teamed up with AHB Bedding and delivered free mattresses across the state of New South Wales. Then we did Meet Me at the Blue Mountains, another tourism campaign to get people up there. And of course, when COVID hit, I started Shop Small. Now, these are all the things I've done. They've got nothing to do with the Liberal Party. They've got nothing to do with any level of government. I don't ask permission from anybody. I just go do these things because they're my ideas. And I really hope the community has seen how much I invest back in the community to help people, and I hope that's worthy of their vote.
Yeah, well, I think it is. And we've for people that don't know, Sarah came on my radio show. When was it? Last year, was it?
I think so.
Last year, yeah. And we talked about Shop Small. It was based on, just Shop Small. But if you don't know, you can check out Shop Small on Facebook. It's # Shop Small. It's a group. How many members are you at now?
I think we're over 15,500 members.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's pretty big.
Yeah. So it's a great place. If you've got a small business, I know a lot of people have started small businesses, especially during COVID and lockdown, just for a bit of extra cash if they've lost their jobs or their hours are being cut. But it's such a great community there now online,
and
you know.
It's positive. And throughout the year and a half, leading up to 2 years now that I've had Shop Small going, I started it on, I think it was March the 20th last year, as this COVID word was becoming part of our lives and we didn't know what a pandemic was going to do. Started that, and it really has ended up running quite organically now. I spend a lot of my time going out, as you see, promoting small businesses, and the 15,500 strong membership gives it a platform. So if I'm plugging a business, it's got a huge audience already to showcase to. But there's so many businesses daily. At one point, it was up to 50 to 60 businesses a day advertising on Shop Small. And because it's a group, they can put the content on, and I just monitor it and make sure nothing's untoward. But it's just been basically positivity the whole way through, and non-political. Yeah.
Well, that's the best thing, isn't it? I'm sure there's people on there who are, you know, Labor voters, and there's people on there who are Liberal voters, people on there Greens voters. But yeah, it's really just about coming together and supporting small business, and about, you know, instead of spending your money at Bunnings or Coles or Woolies, go to your local, you know, your local grocer, or
I try and
whatever
do that
it may
and
be.
practice what I preach. And it's quite funny because sometimes you do just need to go to Coles or Woolies,
Yeah.
right? Like if you need a box of cereal or your special shampoo conditioner you like, or what have you, and you're like, I'm sorry, I really, you know, I've just got to duck into Coles for 5 minutes. But I couldn't stress enough how important it is to really, if you've got something you need, try and source it locally. Shop Small also has a search function where you can just type in the product, and, you know, posts will come up that advertise those things, and you can see it there for yourself and support them. And, you know, small business sounds cliche. I support small business. Again, you've got to practice what you preach. You can't just go out there and say you support it and do nothing about it. I've invested nearly 2 years, up to 2 to 3 hours a day on this group, supporting these businesses. Yeah. And the biggest thing to remember is it's not just a business. It's a family. It's a mum and a dad, or someone like that who's running this business. They've got a mortgage to pay. They've got kids' school fees. You know, they've got bills and expenses. And supporting that small business means this family, you know,
can do those things. Yeah, for sure. And I like to think of it as like, you know, if you're going to spend $100 a week on whatever it may be, $10 of that, just $10 should be spent on, you know, Shop Small. And another thing that's really cool about the group on Facebook is if you're looking for anything, if you just put a post up saying, you know, I'm looking for a sign writer, or I'm looking for someone who cuts, you know, mows lawns or whatever, you'll get flooded with responses like straight away. And yeah, I know, you know, my friend Naomi from Cookie Cut and Co. Yeah. So she's so thankful to you because, she's done so well on there, and you know, she just keeps smashing her goals. I think she wanted to hit 3,000 followers on Instagram by the end of this year. She hit it like 3-4 months ago.
Yeah, wow. So good. Well, she's got great stuff to sell.
Yeah.
Like her big platters are just amazing.
Yeah. No, she's killing it. Yeah. And she left her, like, this is the importance of, I guess, shop small, is that it can, you know, a lot of people are on there as, you know, a second business and that, but a lot of people, it picks up so fast that it becomes their full-time job. And that's what happened with Nay, is that she had to leave her, you know, and she had a good job at Alex & Co. in Parramatta, and she thought, nah, I just can't keep up. So
how good's that?
Yeah, so good. Now she's
doing what she loves.
Exactly.
And making a living off it.
Yeah, making a living. Yeah, her and her man bought a house together, and they're getting married and that. So yeah, she's ticking the boxes. I introduced them two together too. So I'm like, that. I'm a matchmaker. I do. Don't you worry. Every time I see him, I do. But no, it's good. So one thing I did want to talk about, and I think it's important for people to know, is as a politician. Now, people obviously see politicians, you know, on the news and that, and giving their sound bites and things like that, but I don't think they really know the intensity of what goes on, especially during a campaign. Are you happy to go into that? Yeah.
Always,
yeah. So obviously now we don't have to name names or anything or drag people through the mud. But
enough people do that to me.
Well, yeah. But there has been some vicious, you know, tactics or whatever you may call it against you during especially the last federal election and during this last council election. So yeah, if you want to go into that a bit.
Yeah, look, it's been disappointing that people in this community, which I've grown up in and love, feel that that's the best way they can express themselves. And as I've always said, in politics, you should always focus on the policy, not the person. And if you've got a problem with a decision, there's ways to advocate for that. You can have a loud voice. You can protest. You know, we're in a democracy. You can do all of those things. But attacking the person, unfortunately, weakens the narrative of the person, of whatever they're fighting for. And that's not the way to get the decision makers to come and sit at a table with you and maybe hear your point of view or change the decision that's been made. You know, if you're going to attack them, their partner, their family, their children, you're going to get them off, not offside, but you're going to, it's not the way that in Australia we should be. It shouldn't be that discourse in Australia. We should be better than that.
Yeah.
So it has been disappointing to see that happen. It's been disappointing that a lot of other candidates were involved. And you'll find with me, I'm not very shy about that kind of thing. I'll call a spade a spade. You know, there's people that advocate for better conditions for women in politics or better safety online for women and all those kind of things. Yet they got their fingers right into that pie participating. And, yeah, it's disappointing that people want to think that they earn or deserve credibility, yet they're engaging in that kind of behaviour. So when it happens, we're still human beings, politicians, and I think people are very easy now with social media to jump on the keyboard and have their 2 cents worth of a comment.
100%.
But people need to realise we're still people. Anyone in any job is still a human being. And you need to start treating people better. And I think the attack mechanism that going for people and doing those kind of things, photoshopping images, the way that I've seen images photoshopped, taking pictures of my children that I've posted online and manipulating them, you know, one, for example, which I've put out there, turning my daughter into a devil head, you know, a child. For God's sake, grow up.
Yeah.
You know, it's disgusting. And one individual who engaged in that photo must post, I don't know how many comments or threads a day about me. And you just think, go out there, get a job or go and volunteer and contribute to your community in a positive way because this is sick.
Yeah.
You know, so go and do something constructive with your time that helps people. And so, you know, I kind of sat silent through the last, the last few weeks of things that were going on. And I think that in the end, people have respected me more for doing that. As I said at the start of this, they voted at the ballot box accordingly. When the results were coming through, it was a vindication that holding your head high is sometimes the best approach, as hard as it can be. And I think people forget as well that myself and my partner Matt are very well known in the community. If you want to go around spreading lies like that, people kind of know it's just not true.
Yeah.
And you lose credibility, or the people lose credibility participating in it.
Yeah, for sure. I think I saw a quote the other day that summed up social media pretty well, and it was social media has made people way too confident in, you know, basically talking smack and not getting punched in the face for it. Because think of this, like way back, they wouldn't say these things to your face. They just wouldn't.
Never do. People, and there's a few of them that have been contributing online for years, and they'll come to the council chamber and you'll confront. I'm a, let's go talk about this face to face, and they run.
Yeah.
Like completely scared, and you go, wow, you're really brave.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the issue face to face. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Which is quite interesting. But the federal government very recently announced that they want to introduce a new set of laws that forces social media companies to expose the admins behind certain pages. And as a lawyer myself, I believe that people need to be accountable for the words and the actions that they do and say. And so I'm going to be really supporting these laws, and I hope that they get through the parliament, because no one should be able to hide behind a Facebook page as an anonymous admin and be able to get away with complete defamation of character or reputation to people. They need to be held accountable for their actions, and the government needs to hold these big tech companies, to account as well for allowing these things to happen. Because as a mum of young daughters, I've got a young son as well, but especially the impact it has on girls, especially teenage girls, social media and the pressure from people. If I can use my voice or my capacity in any way to champion an issue and make positive change, right now that one's very something I feel strongly about. So I want to take that one on board, and if I can do anything to help our children and have a safer online environment, then I will.
Yeah. I guess that's a good segue into sort of running for next year's federal election. And what are the main issues that you really want to run on?
I think that, as we touched on before, our economy is a big one, and it sounds again like a bit of a cliche buzzword, but it is so important because you've got a family, I've got a family, we've all got. We want opportunity for our kids down the track. So to make sure the government's investing in the right things, infrastructure projects that therefore create jobs, it's very, very important. So those kind of things I'll be talking about a lot. Then, of course, to bring it onto a local level, the seat of Macquarie is the Hawkesbury and the Blue Mountains. So we've got two really big infrastructure projects in both of those LGAs at the moment on the table, which is the third crossing of the Hawkesbury River. And in the Blue Mountains, it's the duplication of the Great Western Highway from Katoomba onwards. So a lot of community discussion will be happening around those two infrastructure projects to get them right.
Yep.
I'm happy to be an advocate in that sense as well. A lot of the things I'm already getting feedback on is road safety. And I know they're two major road projects, but more local roads as well. We need to seal those roads and fix a lot of them up, especially congestion points. Getting people home safer and faster is something I'm big about, especially when living at North Richmond and I'm stuck in the same traffic as everybody else. So I feel it, I know it. They're the big things as well. I think something I've developed a huge interest in and passion for is protecting our environment and having beautiful, pristine environments of the, Blue Mountains World Heritage Area. And of course, just behind us, the gorgeous Hawkesbury River. We really must invest in protecting those environmental assets. So that's something I really want to make sure that we do. We'll have other things coming up, like the raising of the Warragamba Dam wall. And after having the flood that we had, floods the last couple of years, but mostly this year, and seeing the damage that causes, I think debating and discussing flood mitigation options is something this community should be very interested in as well. So a lot of infrastructure going on. Another thing dear to me, and you touched on meeting my dad, is veterans issues. And having grown up on RAF Base Richmond and as part of a military family, having dad serve in Iraq, Somalia, Afghanistan and East Timor, and seeing the trauma that's come from that, the PTSD, and dad's very happy for me to talk about that. I really, really want to do whatever I can for veterans issues, because we need to make sure we're looking after the men and women who go and serve overseas and sacrifice their lives and are exposed to the most horrific circumstances over there.
Yep.
When they come back here and we are in, for by and large, a peaceful country, we've got to help them adjust and get on with their lives for a second opportunity and career.
Yeah, no, I fully agree with that. Yeah, I'm big on, Veterans Affairs as well. And, obviously the most important day of the year for me is Anzac Day. And, and I just feel like for me, if, I see, obviously everyone wants to go to the pub on Anzac Day. That's a given. But I feel like if you're not going to a dawn service, then you shouldn't be going to the pub. That's how I see things anyway. I don't know if you agree.
We are living the best life in Australia.
Yeah.
Of course, there's always things we'll debate and things could be better here and there and everywhere. But the sacrifice made during those couple of world wars, and of course other conflicts as well, to give us the freedoms we have today, the ability to drive around, do what we want, have a voice, speak out against something, go and vote, all those, have a great education. Yes, if you can't get up one day a year at dawn and say thank you, I agree with you on that one. I'm pretty strong about that too.
Yeah. And I just wanted to get your opinion on some issues that I care about. Now, obviously, I would call myself probably a conservative libertarian. Okay. So I'm all for small government. I'm kind of, before I would just say I was more conservative. Lately, I guess I've become more libertarian, but still with conservative values. And I just think, governments, if you don't need to be there, get out of my life, like if you don't need to be in that aspect of it, go away. So for me, now the only thing I'm probably a bit left on is, and we were talking about music festivals earlier, is pill testing. What's your stance on that?
Gone out of left of field.
Yeah.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
So you mean if you're at a festival and the police find pills on you, can they test them on the spot?
So to have pill testing there, they've run a couple of trials in Canberra. Is basically if people have pills, they can go to a tent, get them tested. There's a doctor and a psychologist there. They'll tell them what's in it. If they say it's dangerous, they can throw them away. Yeah. Now, it did get proven there was obviously inquiry into it. It did get shown that it does save lives. But I can see both sides of it. And
at the end of the day, drugs are, I'm assuming the drugs they're taking
are
an illegal substance.
They are, yeah.
Yes. And therefore you're breaking a law.
Yeah. Yes. No, I get that side of the argument as well. But where I stand on it is just the reality of they're going to take them anyway. Obviously, I've gone to, hundreds of festivals and concerts, and it's just a reality of it is that people are going to take drugs. It doesn't
being a reality, Matt. I'm serious about that.
Yeah.
Like I will be telling my children, don't you dare in 100,000 years try and even think about it. And I hope that other parents encourage their children, to do the same thing. And I'm very much a big believer in you don't need a substance to have a good time.
Yeah.
And we need to be educating kids. If that means educating kids better in high schools or in trades, when they're young and they leave school early, then we need to be investing more in that, because you shouldn't need to be, abusing alcohol or drugs just to have fun. Yeah.
No, I agree with that. And I do agree as well that there needs to be further education. I think better education too, more hard hitting, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with hard hitting.
Yeah.
Examples of how other people's lives have spiraled out of control.
I think in it's very stagnant sort of education with, drug information at high schools, and that is sort of, this does this to your body and this can happen. It's kind of like, well, why don't we talk to someone who's done it, or talk to, or get someone to come to school who's recovered from being a heroin addict or whatever it may be.
There was a program, and forgive me for not knowing its name, a few years ago, I remember, where the police, I think I'm right on this, the police were going around to schools and showing real life examples of, or maybe it wasn't schools, maybe it was in when people had to do education courses after being caught, but it was in your face. It was the graphic images of car accidents or effects of the drugs in your system and all those kind of things. I think people do need to see that.
Yeah.
Just telling them, yeah, this is bad for you sometimes doesn't work. I'm very much about spreading the message correctly.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think I don't know. My view on it is just, I guess we just agree to disagree on pill testing. I think
what I'm saying is, I think you need to take that step back from allowing people to enter a festival with pills and having that option there to getting into their mindset that you don't take the pills in the first place.
Yeah. But I feel like that's already been the mindset now and it's not working really.
Why don't we change that? Why don't we get someone, you come to me in my role, I take it higher, and we try and get that better education out there. And I mean, to me, that also goes hand in hand with making offences for people who make drugs higher, you know? If it means locking them up for longer, you know, so that there's a deterrent is my point to doing all of that. I understand there's a market there because, you know, that people make money out of it, but make the consequences bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
I just don't want to come off as you know, fake in that because obviously I've experimented with things myself and
Okay.
I just don't want to come across as, you know, not, you know, I mean, you would support that, me standing by what I think, and
Everybody's allowed to have their opinion, and we're allowed to debate it respectfully.
100%. Yeah, I'm all for that. That's why I started this podcast. I'm like,
Yeah.
you know, I want people to be able to come on and talk things freely and,
For sure.
you know, without editing it and, you know, little gotcha moments by mainstream media, which
I like those gotcha moments.
yeah, sometimes it's good depending on who they're on. But so some other issues, I guess, that I'm also passionate about would be, I guess, I'm trying to think now what are good ones to ask you about for your opinion. I guess just on a more general, broader sense with COVID and everything happening, with, you know, would you like to see us living completely, you know, restriction free?
I'm not a health expert. I know that sounds like a very political answer, but I'm not. We have to take health advice. It's like if, as a politician, I went out there tomorrow and funded a road. I can't design it. You know, an engineer has to come and design it. So if there's, I understand right now everyone's over wearing masks. Even I'm over wearing masks.
Changes soon, doesn't it? 15th?
Well, the 15th was the date set to review it, I think. And
Okay.
I don't know what the state government's going to do. I don't have a foot in that camp, but we'll wait and see. But we are all over wearing masks. But if there is a spike in cases, and that's a really simple way we can try and reduce some of that risk and the spread, then absolutely. I think society has become a lot better in looking at germs, and you know, everywhere you go there's sanitizer, and that's great. I mean, encouraging kids to wash hands even more as a simple measure to stopping the spread of a virus is fantastic. So I don't want to see lockdowns in terms of what we've had, where people are on the phone crying to me because they can't meet their mortgage this week. That's distressing and heartbreaking, and I just don't think we could cope again as a society with that.
Me neither.
Not just on the economy, but the mental health
level,
of people are at breaking point. So, and as you said, I don't think Dom
wants to go that way.
He'll do I mean, if he has to as a last resort, but I think he'll try everything else before we do that again. And it's not just about business and money and mental health, but it's the freedom of an individual to be able to live life. And I think that after these 2 years in this COVID environment, governments and the health authorities have educated people very quickly on ways to live in a pandemic. And I think we have all been really, really good for listening to that and adapting ourselves.
Yeah.
Although I will say something I am finding difficult from it all is the simple handshake, right? So my whole life in this job, you meet someone, you put out your hand, you shake their hand. It's as Aussie as you can get, right? And how funny in just 2 years of a pandemic where we've got to socially distance and keep away from each other, that classic way to greet someone has a big question mark hanging
So
over
taboo,
it.
isn't it now?
Isn't it, right? So
I don't agree with that at all. I'll shake everyone's hand. I'll give everyone a hug. You know?
So, you go up to someone and you're meeting them for the first time, and you go, I go, what are you comfortable with? A handshake? Do we elbow? Do we just wave nicely at each other? It's quite odd to take away that real casual contact of a handshake.
Yeah.
And I find it funny how society can really quickly change like that.
Yeah.
I hope it's not lost forever.
No, yeah, no, me neither. I think in terms of that, I think people in a general sense are getting pretty much back to normal with that, especially, high vaccination rates out there. I think, people are pretty keen to just, it's funny, what's funny to me is what I find crazy is, obviously there's still some restrictions on how many people you can fit in a venue and whatnot. But once you get inside, everyone's all over each other anyway.
I don't think, people are certainly being a bit more relaxed now, and it is because of those high vaccination rates. And again, that was a message I was quite strong about online, as you would have seen over definitely the last year once the vaccine came out. And that was an important message to spread to the community to go and get vaccinated. And I was very happy to show when I had mine and when my daughter, who was 13, had hers. And I know there were people with reactions and things like that. Again, I'm not a doctor or a health expert. I can't comment on it. But when the health advice was go get vaccinated, and we've had such a high rate of the community do it, that's what's enabled us to be able to, start living like we used to again.
Yeah. Now, I don't agree on everything with that. You would know I've been pretty vocal online and that about it. But I'm all for people. Look, my whole view on it is if people choose to do whatever they want to choose to do, I'll support it. Yeah, that's my view. And I guess another issue that's important to me is, and I want to get your opinion on it, is the right to protest in this country. Now, we saw a bit of that up in the air, I guess, a little bit during COVID, and sort of a question mark got put on that right to protest, right to assembly versus the, public health orders. What's your opinion on all that?
Well, we are in a democracy. Keep coming back to that word. There is a right to express your opinion that you don't like a decision being made. But I do think that people have to also not just have tunnel vision, okay? So if we are in a pandemic, we have a responsibility to our neighbour, to our best friend, to our co-worker, to whoever we're coming into contact with, to make sure that we're not spreading the virus or the disease and things like that. People need to balance those considerations and not just be, I'm just going to protest and it doesn't matter about anything else that's going on. We as a human race have to start really thinking more about our fellow man or woman, beside us. We really do. And I will never take away someone's right to protest. I've had plenty of protests at the council chambers or events I've been at. And as I said to you right at the start, even when people have an issue they feel strongly for, yes, say it. Start a Facebook page about it. Do whatever you want to do about it. You have a right to say that. Again, back to the sacrifice made by our soldiers formerly to give us those rights.
Exactly.
But I think a lot of balance and a lot of thinking about others and not just selfishness is very important when we're in a pandemic. We are in a pandemic. You have to think about others as well.
Yeah, and I think that goes for every protest, I guess, out there is, there's that balance between protesting and then there's causing chaos.
There's still laws to follow. You can protest,
exactly, yeah.
But you can't break the law in terms of violence. It can't turn violent. You can't hurt somebody. You can't go destroy a building.
Yeah.
There are consequences for that. That's not protesting. That's criminal behaviour.
Well, exactly. We saw that in America a lot with the,
Yeah, I'm very strong on that line between protesting
and rioting
and breaking the law.
Yeah. I wrote quite a few statuses when all that was going on with the BLM stuff and whatnot. And I think there's a lot more to that issue that people don't quite realise, and how deep it actually runs. But I think that's a fair point. There's you can't go burn a building down and I was protesting.
Nah.
The
law's going to come after you, and so it should.
Yeah.
Because that burning building probably had people working in it, and that was their jobs.
Yeah.
Someone owned that building and had a mortgage on it. It's unacceptable.
Yeah. I agree. I guess now we'll finish on what is your message to the Hawkesbury, first for running, as a councillor, and then second running for the federal election next year, which will be probably March next year.
Speculation is between March and May. I don't have an answer to that.
Yeah, we won't really know
man
until.
Who knows the answer to that?
Yeah.
So,
you have his phone number? Let's give him a call. ScoMo. ScoMo, when's it going to be, mate?
He'll tell me that.
Give us the Speak Free exclusive.
Yeah, don't have the answer to that, but sometime then. I think the cutoff date is May 21. I think.
Okay, and it's usually about what 6-week campaign?
Yeah, when they'll call the date, roughly a 6-week campaign.
Yeah, cool.
Although it's technically started.
Well, exactly.
So,
I mean, that's the joy with everyone knowing you, I guess, in the Hawkesbury, isn't it? Is that you can campaign throughout. I mean, you've been basically campaigning since the last
I haven't stopped
election.
campaigning on the federal election. When people say, why council as well? Again, council's my job. Federal candidacy is just that, a candidacy.
Yeah.
I haven't got anything yet. I hope that people can see that I do this job really well. And if anything, the pandemic has taught me that life is really short and you need to be grateful for every moment and every opportunity. And if something comes your way, no matter what you do in life, grab it with both hands and say, I'm going to try this. And so I hope people see that and they go, okay, she's a counsellor and she's done all this, all this stuff for the Hawkesbury and to help people. Yeah, as I said before, okay, that's just on one level of issues. Let's see on those federal issues whether she can, let's see if she's got the same voice and ability to do that. And so, yes, council is still my job and I'm still doing things for the community there. But the candidacy is just that. Let me see if people put their trust and faith in me on a different level.
Yeah. And I guess, for people who don't, care, well, not say care, but they're not as politically invested as,
aren't.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
And say if they voted for our current federal MP last time, what would be your message to them to change their vote to you?
To change their vote it's about two things. It's about the individual person you're voting for, but the individual person you're voting for belongs to a party that will form government. So it's not just about someone being nice and friendly to you. My biggest message is go and investigate what they stand for, okay? It's a little bit deep, but go and look at their ideology, okay? So obviously as a member of the Liberal Party, my ideology is that I believe in small government, that the government needs to give opportunity to people to therefore go and make something for themselves, okay? To me, the mantra of the Labor Party, in contrast, is about big government. It's about them watching over you and controlling your life and not giving you the opportunity. I was having lunch with someone today who said the perfect line in what is the contrast between Liberal and Labor. And it is that Labor will give you a handout, but the Liberals will give you a hand up. And I think if people can remember that, that's extremely important. But go and educate yourself on what the individuals stand for. The Labor left, which is where people belong to the Labor left. Go and see what the Labor left stand for. It's socialism.
It is, yeah, I agree.
Which is basically, and if you go look at the Labor Party's constitution, it uses that word in there, okay? So go and have a look at what socialism stands for. Whereas in the Liberal Party, we believe that if you work hard, you get individually rewarded. So you bring home your money, hopefully through good policy, you're paying lower tax on that as you can, but hopefully those taxes are then invested in, yes, education, infrastructure, all those kinds of things. But with the Labor Party, and specifically the Labor left, the way I look at it is they want a more even distribution of wealth. So you go and work hard, but you pay higher taxes to the government who distributes that out to people. So you're not quite keeping as much as you earn. And to me, that's the difference. And people need to go and see ideology, what people stand for, so that if they got into government, they're actually looking for a more socialist kind of situation. Go see the organisations and things that they belong to, because that will give you an understanding on their vision for what they want Australia to be. And on that, I would end by saying that the last thing Australia needs right now is a change into the unknown. When Labor and Albanese, I'm pretty sure belongs to Labor left. And so that's the kind of vision they would want. When Shorten was the leader in 2019 and came out very aggressively with a whole range of tax reforms against negative gearing and franking credits and all those kind of things, that was a really aggressive change to the way that money was collected in taxes and all those kinds of things for everyday Australians, and they didn't like it. Don't think that Labor coming out right now and trying a soft approach is anything different, because the second they get government, they will try and implement the same agenda as they wanted to before.
Yeah.
And I think in a pandemic, the last thing we need is that uncertainty and change.
And they're already talking about more climate taxes and things like that.
But Labor is all about taxes.
Yeah.
Labor is higher taxes. That's what they've always done. And so people need to really understand and grasp that. And that's what I'm saying. You may not care about politics. You may not even want to vote. It might bother you to have to go do that. But it's going to hurt or help the hip pocket of you and your family. And that's why you need to care.
Yeah, I fully agree with that. I'm very vocal on, I guess, I hate seeing people who work real hard for their money and their taxes going to Billy Bob down the street who smokes cones all day and doesn't have a job and he's able to work.
I'll leave that one with you, Matt.
But yeah, that's what I don't like seeing. I like to see, and I guess the Liberal Party, that's what they stand for is, individual responsibility and individual freedom and the freedom to go out and make something of yourself versus getting a handout from the government and being, I guess, a slave to the government.
That's right. As I said, a hand up, not a handout. I'm going to use that all through the next campaign, so get used to it because it is the difference between Liberal and Labor in a nutshell. And I think the other thing to remember is, if you're voting Liberal here, you're going into a coalition, which is Liberal and National Party, and the Liberal and National parties are very open about that. If you're voting Labor, they're only getting over the line because of the Greens. So you need to think long and hard about the fact that Labor, if they form a government, and in all instances it could be a minority government if they do, they're going to be beholden to the Greens. If it's not in the lower house, it'll be in the Senate. And that's where we're going to see a change in the Australian way of life and what you and I hold valuable to us. Because I can't see any value in a lot of the Greens' policies. They don't make sense. They're not costed and they're not realistic.
Yeah. And I think they know that too. They want to be outrageous. That's how I see it.
To govern a country.
No, 100%. No, they just like to be loud. And also the leader currently of the Greens Party doesn't like discourse because he blocked me on Instagram for giving him my opinion. Okay. So there you go. Anyway, so did Anastasia Palaszczuk actually. So anyway,
got a good record there.
Got a good record. I don't think they'll be coming on the podcast anytime soon.
No, probably not.
Anyway, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for coming in and speaking free. And you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for everybody who's taken a few minutes to listen. I hope you learned something valuable. And just if I can say, people are free to contact me anytime if they've got questions. I think I'm probably the most accessible person, locally elected person out there. So please feel free to do that. And thank you for the opportunity to chat.
Thank you. And remember, guys, speak free with Matty G.